News of Queen Lysira's proposal to Jace Carter spread across Santori Prime like wildfire. It was not just a small rumor, it became the biggest story on both human and Santori news networks. People could not stop talking about it. On the human side of the colony, people watched their screens in shock. Some cheered for Jace, saying he was brave and that this could bring a true friendship between species. Others were afraid. How can a human and an alien really marry? Some asked, worried about what this would mean for everyone. Jace's friends sent him messages all day. His best friend, Tasha, called him the minute she heard. "Jace, you can't be serious. The Queen of the Xantari. Are you safe? Is this even real?" she asked, half laughing, half worried. "I don't know what's happening, Tasha," Jace replied honestly, "but I think I have to see this through. It's bigger than me." Meanwhile, things were even more intense in the Xantari Palace. Nobles and officials gathered in secret meetings. Some were angry, calling the Queen's idea dangerous and foolish. Others were curious, whispering that maybe a union could bring peace and new understanding between their worlds. Lysira sat quietly in her private chambers, reading letters from her people. Some begged her not to go through with the marriage. Others wished her happiness and hoped this would heal old wounds between Xantari and humans. Despite all the noise, Lysira stayed calm. She sent a message to her people, telling them she would not make this decision for politics alone. "I am following my heart, and I hope you will trust me," she said in her message. Her words surprised many, as Xantari leaders were known for thinking with logic, not feelings. For Jace, every day brought new surprises. One morning, he woke up to find reporters at his door. They asked questions about his past, his feelings for Lysira, and whether he really loved her. Jace felt embarrassed, but he did his best to answer honestly. Later, Jace was invited to a human council meeting. The leaders were worried about the future. If you marry the Queen, it could mean a real alliance, or it could lead to more trouble if it fails, said the colony governor, an older woman named Patel. She looked at Jace with serious eyes. "You must be careful, Jace. The whole colony is watching." Jace nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. He realized this was not just about him and Lysira. It was about the hopes and fears of two very different peoples. That night, Jace looked up at the alien sky. Stars shined over the blue towers of the Xantari city. He felt small but also hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, something good could come from this strange and wonderful connection. And somewhere, in her own quiet room, Lysira gazed at the same stars, wondering what the future would bring. Jace Carter did not expect his day to end in a royal audience. He was just an engineer, someone who fixed broken machines, not a hero or a diplomat. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The human colony on Santori Prime was always busy, full of noise, hope, and sometimes fear. The Xantari were an old race, proud and mysterious, with eyes like shining sapphires and voices that sounded like music. Their world was beautiful but dangerous, filled with strange plants and huge crystal towers. Humans were newcomers here, and not everyone liked their presence. That morning, Jace was repairing a broken water pump near the royal gardens. The gardens were forbidden to humans, but Jace had special permission. His hands were full of wires and tools when he heard a sharp cry. He looked up and saw two figures, one Santori, dressed in flowing blue robes, and another, a tall shadow, moving quickly behind her. Without thinking, Jace dropped his tools and ran. He didn't know who the Xantari woman was, only that she was in danger. He tackled the shadowy figure, knocking him to the ground. They struggled, but Jace used every bit of strength and a little luck to pin the attacker down until guards arrived. Later, he learned that the woman he had saved was not just any Xantari. She was Queen Lysira herself. The news spread fast. Some humans called Jace a hero. Some Xantari said he was a meddler who should never have been there. Before he could think about what had happened, Jace was escorted to the palace. It was grand, made of blue crystal that shone in the sunlight. The air inside was cool and smelled like strange flowers. Centauri nobles watched him from the shadows, their faces unreadable. A pair of guards led Jace into the throne room. Queen Lysera sat on a raised seat, her long silver hair falling around her shoulders. She wore a crown that sparkled with blue gems, and her eyes studied Jace with curiosity. "You are the human who saved me," Lysera said, her voice soft but clear. "Why did you help a stranger, even when it put your life in danger?" Jace swallowed. He felt nervous with so many eyes on him. "It didn't matter who you were," he said honestly. "Someone needed help. That was enough." A small smile touched the queen's lips. The nobles whispered among themselves. To Jace's surprise, Lysera stood and stepped closer. She was taller than he expected, elegant and strong. "Courage and kindness are rare, even among my own people," she said. "Today, you have done more than you know." Jace did not understand what she meant, but he could feel the tension in the room. He realized his life would never be the same again. Jace Carter hardly slept that night. The queen's words kept running through his mind. He was just an engineer. He never wanted to be famous. But now, every human and Centauri in the city was talking about him. The next morning, a royal messenger came to his small apartment. "The queen wishes to speak with you, alone," the messenger said, bowing politely. Jace felt nervous as he followed the messenger through the city. Everywhere he walked, people stared. Some Centauri looked at him with respect, others with suspicion. Human workers whispered his name as he passed. He was taken through the palace gates again, down long halls made of blue glass. This time, there were no guards or nobles waiting. Instead, the messenger opened a small door and bowed again. "Go in, please." Jace stepped into a bright room full of sunlight and strange, beautiful flowers. Queen Lysera stood by the window, looking out over the gardens. She turned when he entered and smiled gently. "Thank you for coming, Jace Carter," she said. Jace nodded, not sure what to say. He noticed there was no crown on her head now, and her silver hair fell freely down her back. For a moment, she looked less like a queen and more like a person. They sat across from each other at a low table. Lysera poured him a cup of sweet blue tea. There was a quiet moment, broken only by the song of a bird outside. "You saved my life," Lysera began, "but you have also changed things here. My people and your people have lived together, but not truly trusted each other. You have made many think differently." Jace shrugged, feeling shy. "I only did what anyone should do." The queen smiled. "Not everyone would risk their life for a stranger. I admire that. But there is another reason I ask you here." Jace's heart pounded. He waited, confused and curious. Lysera leaned closer, her sapphire eyes locked on his. She spoke in a voice just above a whisper, so soft that he almost thought he imagined it. "Would you marry someone like me, human?" Jace stared at her, stunned. For a moment, he could not speak. The queen's face remained calm, but her eyes were searching his. "Our worlds are at a crossroads. If a human and a Xanteri could unite, perhaps our people could find true peace. But this is not only about politics. I want to know if you could ever care for someone like me." Jace's mind raced. He never imagined a question like this. He looked at Lysera, not as a queen, but as someone who had shown him kindness and trust. He took a deep breath and answered honestly, "I don't know what the future holds, but I am willing to try." The queen smiled, a real, warm smile. "That is all I ask, Jace Carter." In that moment, everything changed. For Jace, for Lysera, and for the future of two worlds. The palace was busier than ever. The news of the queen's proposal to Jace Carter had not just surprised everyone. It had also awakened old rules. According to ancient Centauri law, before any marriage, the couple had to pass the proving. This was a set of trials meant to show if two people were truly compatible. Jace learned about this tradition from a Xanteri advisor named Selner. Selner explained, It is not just about love, Jace. The proving tests your mind, body, and spirit. Only those who complete it together can marry in front of all the people. Jace felt a wave of worry. What kind of trials are these? He asked. Selnar only smiled. They are different every time, but the queen will face them with you. The next morning, Jace met Lysera in the palace courtyard. She wore simple robes, not her royal crown, and smiled kindly at him. Are you ready? She asked. Jace nodded, even though he was nervous. Around them, Xantari nobles and human visitors watched with curious eyes. Some Xantari suitors stood nearby as well. They, too, wanted to prove themselves worthy of the queen. The first trial was a test of strength and trust. Jace and Lysera were tied together by a silk cord and had to cross a garden full of moving crystal platforms. If they lost balance, they would fall into cold water below. At first, Jace almost slipped, but Lysera caught him, and together they found the rhythm to move safely. By the end, both were laughing, soaked but happy. The second trial tested their minds. They were led to a chamber filled with strange puzzles, some using Xantari math, others needing human logic. Jace worked hard, and Lysera showed her clever side too. Sometimes they disagreed, but they listened to each other and found solutions as a team. Selnar watched, taking notes, while the other suitors struggled with their own partners. The final trial was the most difficult. It was a test of honesty and heart. Jace and Lysera sat in front of the whole palace, and each had to speak about their fears and hopes for the future. Jace spoke honestly about being afraid, not of Lysera, but of failing both their peoples. Lysera shared her dream of peace and her worry that tradition might hold them back. Their words moved many listeners, both Xantari and human. The nobles whispered to each other, impressed by the couple's honesty. When the trials ended, Selnar announced, "You have passed the proving. You showed courage, wisdom, and true partnership." Jace looked at Lysera and smiled. He felt closer to her than ever before. The queen smiled back, hope shining in her sapphire eyes. But somewhere in the shadows, not everyone was happy. Some Xantari watched in silence, their faces cold. They did not want change, and the trials had not ended their doubts. After passing the trials, Jace Carter and Queen Lysera spent more time together. They still had much to learn about each other's worlds. Jace wanted Lysera to see the human way, how humans lived, worked, and cared for each other. One sunny morning, Jace invited Lysera to visit the human quarter of the city. The queen wore a simple cloak to hide her royal status, and they walked through the busy market streets. People stared, but most only saw two friends talking and laughing. Jace showed her small shops selling food from Earth, and children playing games with handmade balls. "Humans last so much," Lysera said, smiling as a group of kids ran by, chasing a puppy. Jace laughed too. "We have to. Life is hard sometimes, but laughing makes it better." They stopped at a bakery where the owner, Mrs. Lynn, offered them fresh bread. Jace introduced Lysera as his friend from the palace. Mrs. Lynn smiled kindly and handed her a warm roll. "We may look different, but bread is bread, and kindness is kindness," she said. Lysera tasted the bread and closed her eyes in delight. "Your food is simple, but it is made with care. That is something we Xantari sometimes forget." As they walked, Jace explained human customs, how humans celebrated birthdays, comforted each other in hard times, and worked together to solve problems. He told her about his family back on Earth and how he missed them, but also loved his new home on Xantari Prime. Lysera listened closely. "Xantari are taught to hide feelings, to always be strong. But you humans share your hearts so easily," she said. "It is beautiful, but also frightening." Jace nodded. "Maybe both our peoples can learn from each other." While they explored, neither noticed the jealous eyes watching from a distance. Lord Kareth, a powerful Xantari noble, did not want humans to have any more influence. He whispered to his allies, The queen is losing her way. If she follows the human, our traditions will be broken forever. That evening, Lysera invited Jace to the royal garden. The blue flowers glowed softly under the stars. She showed him a secret place with a pool that reflected the sky. "My people say this is where dreams begin," Lysera whispered. "What do humans dream about, Jace?" Jace thought for a moment. "We dream of adventure. We dream of love. Most of all, we dream of a place to belong." Lysera smiled gently. "Then maybe we are not so different." For a while, they sat together, quiet and peaceful. But in the darkness outside the garden, Lord Karath and his followers planned. They would not let this union happen without a fight. Unseen and unknown, a new threat was growing, one that would soon test the strength of both Jace and Lysera, and the hope they had built together. Night settled over the palace, and with it came whispers of trouble. Jace Carter felt the change in the air. People in the halls seemed nervous. Guards walked in pairs, speaking quietly. Even Queen Lysera looked worried as she read messages from her advisors. One evening, as Jace walked back to his room, he noticed a shadow move quickly across the wall. He turned, but saw no one. The feeling of being watched grew stronger each day. He tried to ignore it, but it followed him everywhere. Meanwhile, Lord Karath and his followers met in secret. They believed the queen was making a mistake by trusting a human. "The proving was a trick," one noble whispered. "The queen's heart is clouded." Lord Karath nodded, his eyes cold. "If we do nothing, our traditions will be destroyed. We must act, quietly and quickly." Jace knew something was wrong when one of his human friends, a mechanic named Eli, came to him with a worried look. "Be careful, Jace," Eli warned. "People are saying you're in danger. I heard there's a group that wants to stop the wedding, no matter what." Jace thanked Eli and decided to speak with Lysera. That night, they met in her private garden. He told her everything he'd heard. Lysera listened with a serious face. "I knew there would be some who did not want change, but I hoped they would see reason. We must be careful. I will double the guards, but you must also watch out for yourself." Days passed, and the tension grew. Jace and Lysera tried to go about their lives, but every move felt watched. At a dinner in the palace, a strange xantary dish was served to Jace. Lysera stopped him just as he lifted his fork. She tasted it first, then called for the royal healer. The food was poisoned. The healer looked at Jace with wide eyes. "You were very lucky. Only a small taste, and you would have become very ill." Lysera grew even more worried for Jace's safety. That night, Jace could not sleep. He sat by the window, looking at the city lights. He wondered if marrying the queen was worth all this trouble. But then he remembered Lysera's smile and the hope in her eyes. He knew he could not walk away. The next morning, Lysera called a meeting with her most loyal advisors. "We cannot give in to fear," she said firmly. "If we hide, the enemies win. We must find out who is behind these attacks and show them that courage and trust are stronger than old hate." Jace stood by her side, his heart full of worry, but also pride. Together, they would face this threat within their own walls. Neither knew what dangers tomorrow would bring, but they both understood that real change was never easy and never safe. The days before the wedding were filled with tension. Every corner of the palace was guarded. Jace Carter and Queen Lysera were never alone, and every step they took was watched by eyes both friendly and unfriendly. The Xantari nobles argued in secret. Some wanted to accept the new future. Others, like Lord Karath, wanted to protect their traditions at any cost. "If the queen marries a human, it will be the end of the Xantari way," Karath said in a meeting with his followers. "We cannot allow this union." Meanwhile, Jace's human friends finally arrived from the other side of the colony. Tasha, his best friend, was the first to find him. She hugged Jace tightly. "I can't believe you're really marrying the queen," she said, half teasing, half worried. "Are you okay?" Jace smiled, but he could not hide his worry. It's harder than I thought, Tasha. Some people want to stop us, even hurt us. Tasha patted his shoulder. Well, you're not alone anymore. We're here for you. If anyone tries anything, they'll have to get through us first. Tasha and the other humans were amazed by the palace, its glowing blue walls and floating lights. They tried to understand the strange Xantari customs, and sometimes made mistakes. At a grand dinner, Tasha accidentally used the wrong spoon and caused a few shocked gasps from Xantari nobles. Jace laughed for the first time in days. The moment broke the tension and made even Lysera smile. As the wedding day grew closer, threats against Jace and Lysera became more serious. Anonymous notes appeared under Jace's door. Leave now or suffer the consequences. One night, a small explosion shook the servants' quarters, but nobody was hurt. The palace guards searched everywhere for clues, but the attackers stayed hidden. Despite all this, Jace and Lysera did not hide. Instead, they showed their strength by walking together in public and greeting people from both worlds. Their courage inspired others. Some Xantari and humans began to talk and share stories for the first time. Young Xantari children even asked Jace questions about Earth, and he told them funny stories about dogs and rainstorms. During one evening walk, Lysera looked at Jace. "Do you regret all this trouble?" she asked quietly. Jace shook his head. "No. If we give up, they win. But if we keep going, maybe things will change for everyone." Lysera smiled, her eyes shining in the moonlight. "Then we will stand together." But in the darkness, Lord Karath and his followers gathered their strength for one last attack. The palace was a house divided, some ready for a new beginning, others determined to stop it. Jace and Lysera knew the final challenge was coming. Their love and the future of both their peoples would soon be tested like never before. The palace was quiet, but a storm was coming. Guards patrolled the halls day and night. Jace Carter felt the pressure of every watchful eye. He stayed close to Queen Lysera, who tried to appear calm, even as fear grew inside her. One evening, as Jace and Lysera walked together in the royal garden, the air was thick with worry. Suddenly, shouts echoed from the far side of the palace. "There's an intruder," someone yelled. Before they could react, masked attackers rushed into the garden. Lord Karath led them, his voice cold and full of anger. "This marriage must not happen. You are leading our people to ruin." The guards jumped into action, but the attackers were prepared. Jace grabbed Lysera's hand and pulled her behind a stone bench as energy blasts filled the air. He could see the fear in Lysera's eyes, but also her determination. "Stay low," Jace shouted. Together, they moved toward a hidden gate at the edge of the garden. As they ran, a blast knocked Jace down. Lysera knelt by his side, ignoring the danger. She tore part of her cloak to bandage his arm. "Go without me," Jace said, wincing in pain. But Lysera shook her head. "No, we face this together." Suddenly, Tasha and a group of human friends appeared. Tasha threw a rock at one of the attackers, hitting his helmet. "Hey, over here," she shouted, giving Jace and Lysera a chance to escape. The group fought bravely, using anything they could find: sticks, rocks, even pieces of garden furniture. The Xantari guards regained control, capturing most of the attackers. But Lord Karath slipped away, disappearing into the shadows. The danger had passed, but the night left scars on everyone's hearts. Back inside, the palace healers cared for Jace's wounds. Lysera sat by his side, her hand in his. "You could have died," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jace smiled weakly. "So could you, but you didn't leave me. You broke your own law to save me." Lysera's eyes filled with tears, but she held her head high. "You taught me something, Jace. Sometimes, love is worth more than tradition." News of the attack spread quickly. Many Xantari were shocked that their own nobles had tried to harm the queen, but others were inspired by Lysera's bravery. Some who had doubted the union now sent messages of support. The next day, Lysera spoke to her people. "There are those who fear change," she said, her voice strong. "But fear will not stop us. We will build a future together, not with violence, but with hope." Jace stood by her side, proud and determined. They had survived the worst night of their lives, and together, they were stronger than ever. The day of the wedding finally arrived, and the whole city buzzed with excitement and curiosity. The blue crystal towers of the palace were decorated with shining lights and colorful banners, some in Centauri patterns, others showing Earth symbols. It was the first time the two cultures had ever mixed their traditions for such a big event. Jace Carter stood in his small room, nervous and amazed. Tasha helped him adjust his simple suit, teasing, "Who would have thought? My friend marrying a queen." Jace laughed, but his hand shook a little. "Do you think I'm ready?" Tasha smiled warmly. "You're more ready than anyone I know." In the grand hall, Centauri and humans sat together for the first time. Many nobles still looked unsure, but there was a sense of hope in the air. The Centauri children were especially excited, whispering to each other about the strange human customs they would see. The ceremony began with the Centauri tradition, a slow walk around a fountain, symbolizing the joining of two lives. Jace and Lysera circled the fountain hand in hand, while the choir of Centauri singers filled the hall with beautiful, haunting music. Next came the human tradition. Tasha stepped forward and spoke to the crowd, sharing funny and heartwarming stories about Jace's life. The Centauri laughed, surprised by the open sharing of feelings. Then came the final, most important part, a public challenge. According to old law, any person from either world could step forward to question the marriage. The hall grew quiet as Lord Karath slowly walked to the center. He raised his hand. "I question this union. It is not our way. How can we trust a human? How can you, Lysera, betray your people's traditions?" The crowd held its breath. Lysera looked at Karath, her voice steady. "I have not betrayed my people. I have chosen a new path, one of hope. Jace risked his life for me, not because of law, but because he cares. If we close our hearts to change, we lose what makes us strong." Jace stepped forward too. "I am just a human. I don't have all the answers, but I believe in a future where Centauri and humans can help each other. That future starts with trust." For a moment, the hall was silent. Then, slowly, people began to stand and clap. First the children, then some of the younger nobles, and finally, many others. Lord Karath bowed his head in defeat and left the hall. The ceremony continued. Lysera and Jace spoke their vows, promising to lead together with kindness and courage. When the ceremony ended, Centauri and humans danced side by side, laughing and sharing food. The barriers between them began to fade, replaced by something new: hope. Jace and Lysera smiled at each other. Against all odds, they had made history, together. The sun rose over Centauri Prime, shining on a world forever changed. The wedding of Jace Carter and Queen Lysera became the symbol of a new beginning. People woke to find the city filled with laughter and bright banners, both human and Centauri. After the ceremony, Jace and Lysera stood on the palace balcony and waved to the crowd below. Humans and Centauri cheered together, many waving small flags. Some people cried, happy tears for the hope that now filled the air. Jace felt a warm pride in his heart. He remembered the first time he met Lysera, never imagining he would become part of her world. Now they stood together, united not just by love, but by a promise to create something better for both their peoples. The days that followed were busy but joyful. Centauri and humans worked together to clean up the palace gardens and rebuild parts damaged during the attack. Jace joined them, rolling up his sleeves and laughing with both human friends and Centauri gardeners. Even the youngest children from both species played together, no longer afraid or shy. Queen Lysera began holding special meetings called Councils of Unity. She invited both human and Centauri leaders to share their ideas and worries. The first meeting was tense, with old disagreements surfacing, but Lysera listened carefully to everyone. Jace sat at her side, reminding the group that small steps could build trust. At one council, a young Centauri girl stood up. "Will there be more days like this, when we all celebrate together?" she asked. Lysera smiled and answered, "Yes. This is only the beginning." Jace saw real change happening. New schools opened, where Xantari and human children learned side by side. Markets now sold both earth fruits and Centauri flowers. People tried new foods and learned new words in each other's languages. Some old traditions faded, but new ones began, created together. But there were still challenges. Some Centauri and humans were slow to accept the new peace. There were arguments and even a few protests. Jace and Lysera knew their work was far from finished. Yet, every day, more people joined them in building this new future. One evening, Jace and Lysera returned to the quiet garden where they first spoke of dreams. The blue flowers glowed softly in the twilight. "We have come so far," Lysera said, leaning on Jace's shoulder. Jace squeezed her hand gently. "And there's still so much to do. But as long as we face it together, I'm not afraid." They looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other worlds waited. Maybe, one day, their story would inspire others to choose hope over fear. For now, Jace and Lysera were content. They had proved that love, and a little human courage, could change a world. And in the heart of Xantari Prime, a new dawn had truly begun.